The 2026 NBA draft has now come and gone, and there were a lot of teams that I think got their picks right, but others that didn't. So in today's video, I wanted to do my biggest winners and losers from the 2026 NBA draft. So let's jump into it. So starting off, I think it goes without saying that the Wizards, the Jazz, the Grizzlies, and the Bulls were all winners at the top of this year's NBA draft, as they all ended up going with their guys, with AJ Demancia going number 1 to Washington, Darren Peterson going right after him at number 2 to Utah, then it was Cameron Boozer landing at number 3 to Memphis, and Caleb Wilson going number 4 and ending up in Chicago. But now, let's start with my first official winner of this year's draft, and that's the Atlanta Hawks, and honestly, this might be one of the best drafts in the entire class. Kingston Flemings at number 8 was a home run. He was one of the top available players on my board, and for a Hawks team that needs more creation, more pace, and more guard talent after trading away Trae Young, this pick just makes a ton of sense to me, and I love the fit of him alongside Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson for the foreseeable future for the Hawks. And now I would have understood a Daymara there too, but I actually like that Atlanta went with Flemings, and then they come back and take Zuby Ejiofor with pick number 23, and I didn't love the value as much there. I thought it was a bit of a reach because there were definitely players I had higher, but I do like the overall athletic profile of Ejiofor. He's strong, physical, extremely explosive, and he already plays like a grown man. But the real steal and the best pick of maybe the entire draft was when the Hawks got Henry Vassar at number 52, and Vassar to me was a first round talent, and I actually had him mocked to the Hawks at pick number 23, so getting him that late in the second round is just absolutely insane value. And when you combine Flemings, Zuby, and Vassar, Atlanta got upside, depth, and a lot of value in this year's draft. But my first loser actually had to pick right after Atlanta, and that's the Dallas Mavericks, and they took Merez Johnson Jr. with the 9th pick, and I don't hate Merez Johnson Jr. as a player. I actually really like him. He's physical, athletic, plays extremely hard, rebounds and defends, and gives you real toughness in the front court. But I think the biggest problem is the value with him at number 9 and the fit. At number 9, I thought this was a reach, especially when Yaxel Lindeborg, Daymara, and Braden Burries were all still on the board. And stylistically, I just really don't love putting another non-shooting big next to Cooper Flagg, just like they already have Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. And Dallas, to me, needed spacing, and they needed someone who could just make life easier for Flagg and grow alongside him. And I think Braden Burries would just have made so much more sense here. Now, they did take Sergio De La Rhea later in the first round with pick number 25, and I do think that was solid because he brings size and shooting as a guard. But the second round picks that they took, like Toby Lawal, really didn't make much sense to me either. And I think especially with pick number 9, Dallas had a chance to make Flagg's life easier and get them the point guard of the future, and they just didn't do that. But my next winner is actually the Milwaukee Bucks, and even with the obvious context that losing Giannis changes everything for them, this is a complete rebuild now, and when you're rebuilding, you need to turn every asset into real talent, and that's why getting Braden Burries at number 10 was such a big win. I had Burries 8th on my big board, and I thought Dallas should have taken him one pick earlier, like I mentioned, because he's one of those players who just impacts winning without needing everything to run for him. He can defend, rebound, score, and just makes the right play and elevates the guys around him. But then Milwaukee landed Nate Ament at number 13, and I think that's a really good upside swing that I like. I know Ament has his haters, but he's a smooth 6'10" scorer with long-term creation potential, and I actually had him mocked to Milwaukee at 10 before the draft, but instead they get him 3 spots later while also landing Braden Burries, and I think this is exactly how you start a rebuild the right way. And the team picking right after Milwaukee at number 11 is my next winner, and that's the Golden State Warriors, because landing Yaxel Lindeborg with this pick is just one of my favorite fits in the draft. I had Lindeborg 9th on my big board, so just from a value standpoint, I already liked it, but the fit is what makes it even better to me. The Warriors didn't need another raw project who might be ready 3 years from now. They needed someone who can help Stephen Curry right away, and Lindeborg is definitely older, but that's part of his appeal for the Warriors. He is is a 24-year-old rookie who already has the body, the toughness, the defensive versatility, and the shooting to step into a role immediately for them. He can definitely play within their structure. He knows how to move the ball, defend multiple spots, and not look overwhelmed in big moments. And for a Warriors team still trying to squeeze one more deep run out of the Curry era, I think this is exactly the rookie that they needed. And my next winner has to be the Oklahoma City Thunder, and OKC just keeps winning, it seems. The Thunder get Ade Mara at number 12 without having to trade up for him, which is absolutely massive because there was talk that Mara could go as high as number 8 to the Hawks. So for OKC to sit there and then land a 7'3" center with a 9'9" standing reach is absolutely ridiculous value. And let's be honest, this pick definitely feels like it was made with Victor Wembanyama in mind. Mara gives OKC another giant body to throw into those future playoff battles against Wembanyama, and right now he's not the most switchable defender, but in drop coverage with OKC's point of attack defense in front of him, he can be really valuable for them. But then it gets even better because they added Bennett Sturts with pick number 16, and I think this is one of my favorite fits in the draft. The Thunder needed more ball handling with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander sits, and they got rid of Andrew Wiggins and Isaiah Joe, so now Sturts can come in. He runs the second unit, shoots off the catch, can also shoot off the dribble, and just operates in the pick and roll in such a great way. And I think these were two of the best pickups of the draft. But now we get to my next loser, and that's Toronto, and they're just one of the teams that I have questions about. Taking Allen Graves at number 19 was not one of my favorite picks in the first round, mostly because I just don't love the roster fit or the value there. I had Graves closer to 28 on my big board, and when you look at what Toronto needed, I thought point guard or center made the most sense. LeBaron Philon was somehow still available here for the Raptors. Cameron Carr was also there, and those were players on the board who could have solved some of the problems that this roster faces. Toronto already has a lot of guys in that 6'7" to 6'9" range, so adding another forward like Graves just didn't make the most sense. I don't mind the Jaden Bradley pick later in the second round, but he has shooting concerns as well, and I think they just need additional shooting on that roster. And for a Raptors team that I just think had clear and obvious needs in this draft, it felt a bit more confusing on what they did with their picks. But back to another winner of mine, it has to be San Antonio, and they quietly crushed this draft. Jaden Quaintance at number 20 is the kind of upside swing that I think can be one of the best picks when we look 5 years down the road. He is 6'9", 225 pounds, extremely athletic, and he averaged almost 4 blocks per game as a freshman at Arizona State. But the biggest thing that scared teams off was obviously his injury concerns, and he definitely might not help right away, but the long-term fit of Quaintance next to Victor Wembanyama is scary. The Spurs definitely needed more physicality, more rebounding, and a real backup big so Wemby doesn't have to carry everything defensively like we saw in the playoffs, and Quaintance can definitely be that as he can protect the rim, guard in space, and let Wemby roam like a free safety. But then they made a safety pick as well, adding in Taurus Reed also in the first round, and I really like that. Reed gives them another big body, more rebounding, and a little more offensive polish than Quaintance has right now. And then add in Jacoby Gillespie and Malik Brown in the second round, and I think San Antonio absolutely killed this draft. But another loser of mine is actually the Memphis Grizzlies, and I know I mentioned earlier that Memphis was a winner at the top of the draft, and they definitely were when they landed Cameron Boozer at the number 3 pick, and that's a great one because he fits the Grizzlies' identity with his production, his feel, and physicality. But after that, I was very underwhelmed by what they did. With the Ja Morant situation hanging over everything, I thought it would have made much more sense to add a guard at 16. LeBaron Philon, Bennett Sturts, Ibuka Okori, and Christian Anderson all would have made sense, and they were all available. But instead, Memphis traded back once, then they traded back again, picked up a bunch of second rounders, which was great, but they ended up with Kareem Lopez at 21. And I don't hate Lopez as a prospect by any means. I had him around 20 on my big board, so I think the value here is fine. But when Philon is still on the board at number 21, it felt like Memphis had a chance to steal a lead guard and replace Ja Morant. But instead, they added another forward, and I think the fit between Lopez and Boozer could be a little interesting, and I think they missed a real opportunity. But with the Grizzlies missing out on LeBaron Philon, that let Philadelphia pick him up at number 22, and it has to make them one of my biggest winners of this draft because that is absolutely ridiculous value. I had Philon 14th on my big board, and I thought he could have gone in the lottery, and at the absolute latest, I thought he would be gone by around 16 or 17. So for Philly to get him at 22 is a major win, and I know the concern with Philon is his frame. He's really thin right now, but that is one of the more fixable concerns in my opinion. You can add strength. What is much harder to find is a guard who can get paint touches, finish around the rim, create for others, and actually be trusted with the ball in big possessions, and that is exactly what Philon brings and is exactly what he showed with his time at Alabama the past 2 seasons. And I know Philly still needs more depth at the wing and in the front court, but when a player with the kind of upside that Philon has falls to you, you have to take him and figure out the rest later, and that's exactly what Philadelphia did. Another winner of mine is the Los Angeles Lakers as they traded up in the first round to get Cameron Carr with pick number 24, and that's another one of my favorite value picks here. I had Carr a lot higher on my big board, so getting him in the mid-20s feels like a steal for the Lakers, and the fit here is obvious. Los Angeles is building around Luka Doncic right now, and Luka has made it pretty clear what he wants around him, and that's shooting and spacing and guys who can punish double teams, and Carr checks all of those boxes. This past season, he was Baylor's leading scorer. He shot nearly 40% from 3 on real volume, and he looked absolutely amazing in the 5-on-5 scrimmages at the NBA Draft Combine, which skyrocketed his stock. He also brings athleticism and a 7'1" wingspan at a 6'5" frame. The strength definitely has to improve because right now he's still around 185 pounds, but I think that's going to come. And on a rookie contract and with Luka Doncic creating open looks for you, Carr could become a perfect 3-and-D piece for the Lakers. And my final winner of this year's draft is the Minnesota Timberwolves. Minnesota had a lot going on, especially after adding LaMelo Ball and moving Julius Randle, but I really like the Isaiah Evans pick they got in the second round of this year's draft. The Timberwolves traded down out of the first round into the second round and still landed one of the best shooters that we have in this draft class. Evan gives them movement, shooting, floor spacing, and another perimeter weapon who does not need the ball in his hands to impact the game. And on a roster now with Anthony Edwards and LaMelo Ball, that is going to be extremely helpful. Those guys are going to pressure the defense, collapse the paint, and create kick-out chances for their teammates, and Evans can definitely live off of that. And I don't think he gives you a Dante DiVincenzo type impact right away, but the shooting skill he brings is real, and I think his role on this team just makes sense. Now, they did take Trey Kaufman-Renn later in the second round, and that's not one of my favorite prospects for the NBA, but I think late in the second round, it's a fine pick. But the biggest reason they're one of my winners is obviously what Evans brings and his fit with Minnesota. That wraps it up for my biggest winners and losers in the 2026 NBA draft. Let me know in the comments down below what you thought and who are your biggest winners and losers from this year's draft. Also, if you enjoyed the content, don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.